Textual religions have tended to be religions not only of birth or family, clan, or tribe, but of conversion. Like written knowledge itself, dedicated to the semi-permanent medium and fixed in both time and space, textual religious doctrine has a life of its own, beyond the person of the group, and serves as an open invitation to all who read it and respond favorably. So we find ourselves moving in the early days of scribal literacy into an age where ideas and metaphysical realities come into contact and into conflict and vie for both attention and acceptance. Plato's cosmology, constructed early in the age of alphabetic literacy, is one of the first that we know of to abandon the monistic pantheism of oral antiquity and cleave immanence from transcendence. His dualistic view of reality as existing in two realms, of the material and of the perfect ideal forms, was adopted early on during the spread of Christianity. By contrast, Aristotle's materialist view of creation and his confidence that material reality would reveal itself to us, that our senses would comprehend that revelation, and that our reason would make sense of it, resulted in his virtual banishment from Christian medieval Europe until the 12th century. We can see that writing managed at the same time to create a breach between immanent and transcendent experience, between sensory perception and imagination, between reason and faith, and forced human beings to take sides with one camp or the other. But there were some who tried during the Middle Ages to bridge that divide. I'm not going to tell you about it, because I'm running out of time. And my point is, though, to show this dialectic that was created between imagination and sensory, measurable, empirical measurement of the world. With printing and the beginnings of mass literacy, the distance between objective reality and the metaphysical reality increased enormously. Immanence and transcendence sustaining a breach that has proven difficult, if not impossible, to bridge. In this way, literacy and the modern age contained, and eventually sowed, the seeds of their own postmodern destruction. With the electric simultaneity and instantaneity of postmodernism, the literacy-inspired rift between transcendence and immanence actually disappears, because, as we shall see, transcendence itself disappears. The telegraph came along in the 1830s, which allowed us to send messages over great distances at the speed of light. This is only the first campaign in an electronic communication revolution that is now about a century and a half old. The electrification of communication techniques had profound implications for human civilization. It resulted not only in the radical acceleration and increase of information, the ease of access to information, and the connection of peoples in far-flung corners of the world, but also to the disembodiment of information. For the first time in human history, presence is obsolete. Information need no longer be scratched, engraved, or written on some physical object. Rather than moving on paper or papyrus at the speed of a man, a camel, a horse, or a locomotive, it's now able to move via electric currents at roughly the speed of light. Electric media have a strong bias toward the subjective senses, particularly the sense of hearing and vision. The profoundly presentational structure of visual images and nonverbal sounds so characteristic of electric media limit the nature and intellectual depth of the discourse that makes use of those images and sounds. This is not to say that there is no depth to the visual images, but the depth is presentational and processed through presentational structures, not propositional. We have reason to doubt because we cease to experience the existence of space in electric culture. Electricity obliterates space. We live in a permanent here. We have reason to doubt because we cease to experience the existence of past and future in electric culture. Along with obliterated space, electric media make all time now. The electric world is a world of spaceless simultaneity. Whatever happens anywhere in the world or in space, we know here absorbs and eradicates the idea of the past, the concept of history. In their place, we get an ever-new and ever-renewable present. We live in a permanent now. The ubiquity of electric media makes the argument for the rise of a secondary cultural orality all the more compelling. The average American household contains, as of 10 years ago, 3 televisions, 1.8 VCRs, 3.1 radios, 2.1 CD players, 1.4 video games, and 1 computer. The average American child is engaging more and more media at a much earlier age, which serve to structure his or her thought in a powerfully presentational way. 83% of American children under the age of 6 use screen media on a daily basis, on average for 2 hours a day. And we're all probably, we heard something in the last month about the release of the Kaiser Family Foundation's report Generation N2, which indicates that American teenagers are exposed now to 10 hours and 45 minutes of mediated reality each day of their lives. Meanwhile, standardized test scores have fallen continuously since the 1960s, in spite of a process of recentering the data twice since the 1960s. In 1966, the average verbal score for all students was 543, and the combined verbal and math score was 1059. SAT scores have fallen continuously from 980 in 1963 to 900 in 1990. They hit a low of 499 for verbal that year. And this phenomenon runs consistently throughout American culture. It is not restricted by geography or social class. It is as true of students in the top schools in our country as it is of those entering more local and less prestigious schools. Fewer than half of all Americans now read literature. The number and proportion of Americans who have read any book has declined even more precipitously. But this is not the problem itself. Ignorance is not necessarily an irremediable problem, so much as it is a diminished capacity for rational propositional thought. It is the susceptibility to gossip, innuendo, insinuation, and other forms of what Princeton emeritus professor of philosophy Harry Frankfurt calls bullshit that is the real danger. This is what ought to concern us. The recent studies into neural activity directly related to reading and viewing visual media suggest strongly that propositional structures of thought are mapped early on in human life by and through the activities of reading, writing, and speaking with others. I am so running out of time, and I came close, but I didn't do it. I know I need to leave some space for questions. But my last point is that we have created a culture where information is judged according to its utility. And its utility for us is what it will do for us, not what can we do with it. How will it help make us better people, but how will it help make us more marketable workers, better consumers? And I think that this is a tragic reformulation of the value of information in our society. And I hope that we, as a group, are doing something to remedy that. This is a problem of values, ultimately. And values are transcendent ideas. And we have to believe in them, or we won't accept them.